Well, hi, everybody, and welcome back to Talkin Wellness. My name is Christian.
My name is Kayla.
And my name is Brendan.
And we are so excited to be back. Oh, my goodness. It's been forever. A lot has happened in the past few, I feel like year, but like it's specifically a few months that we've been away. But we're excited to be back, and we're talking about a really serious topic today that I'm excited to talk about because I think is very important to talk about this conversation. But before we begin, I want to, first of all, introduce our special guest. Please share us your name and what you do here at South Florida Wellness Network.
Sure. So my name is John Glover, and I'm the Community Response Supervisor here at South Florida Wellness Network.
Awesome. Well, welcome on the pod. So happy to have you.
Thank you.
So let's just do a quick, 30-second, how are each of us doing? I'm pretty sure they want to know where we've been, how we've grown, what journeys we've been through. So Kayla, I'll start with you.
Oh, gosh. Okay. So what is this in the past few months?
Yeah. That we've been away.
Yeah. Well, I have been, working, which is great because that's how we keep food on the table. It's also where I'm very passionate to serve our community. We are getting really close to a big event that we do in September, National Recovery Month, which this event is going to take place on September 13th in Hollywood at the Arts Park. And we are so excited. We hope the whole community comes out. It is now South Florida Recovery Month, not just Broward, because we are bringing in Broward and Miami-Dade and really hoping to get visitors from all over Florida.
Absolutely.
So there's going to be live performers. There's going to be awards that are going to be given out. We are going to have vendors, food. It's free for the community. And it's a really good time to celebrate recovery and, really rally around individuals that are changing their lives, fighting the good fight and continuing to also impact those that maybe still need support, in their recovery process. So that's kind of what we've been up to. This has been a kind of hard few weeks recently because we lost somebody who is just a tremendous human being in our community. And Tobin Brown, if you all haven't heard, we lost him. And we are going to carry on his legacy because he has absolutely impacted so many people within the community and changed so many lives. And the ripple effect is still ongoing. And I see that very clearly, and so we are going to honor him at Recovery Month, and we have named the Tobin Brown Peer of the Year Award, which will be a way to really bring to light who Tobin is and carry that for the years to come. So we're excited about that. Yeah. And so that's, just in a 30-second snapshot of what we've been up to.
Well, thank you so much. Hi, Brendan.
I don't have anything nearly as transformational as Kayla usually does, because I'm just kind of working, and I started back up school again, so I'm a full-time student and full-time worker. Thank you. So just trying to manage that. And
what are you studying?
I'm studying communications, so the super boring, super basic, but it's to transform me into
a great communicator,
a good leader, and also to send me to the next stage, which is going to be counseling after. So
that's great.
I love that.
Stage.
Yeah.
I
also recommended it because he was on the podcast, and I told him he was a horrible communicator.
No,
no, just kidding.
That's why
they were like, you need to step your game up.
Originally you were a mid communicator. Now you're starting to become a good communicator.
You're like really great.
I'm getting there.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
It was the only way he could stay on, but so.
But hey, now you're getting there, so that's good. Yeah. For me, oh gosh, I feel like it's been like a whirlwind of 2 months for me. Long story short, one of the reasons, there was a million reasons, but one of the reasons that we kind of took a pause is because I was having a whole bunch of medical issues this past few months, or 2 months, I want to say. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, which is a very... what's the word? I guess unpredictable disorder or disease. Basically, my immune system, instead of attacking viruses or when I'm sick, right, it gets confused and it starts attacking my brain and my spine. So walking has been an extra challenging thing in the past few months. I was telling Brendan earlier that this morning I woke up and I was like, uh-oh, what's going on with my body today? So, and it's kind of par for the course. So it's been an interesting journey, and we'll eventually talk more about it, but I've learned to manage a lot of what this is. I have a great care team. I have great supporters. Obviously, you two have been hugely supportive in this process. But I am back. I'm so happy to be back at work and to be able to do this good work. And to be on the podcast, because man, did I miss this. Just to be able to just talk and get to know more stories in the community. It's just a powerful thing. So that being said, we are coming back. We already have a couple episodes scheduled, and we're so excited to just get back and just really discover why recovery is such a beautiful thing, and like through the different stories that we get on the podcast. So
Yeah, awesome.
That being said, we have a very important story to talk about today.
Yep.
John, I just kind of want to give you the floor here. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do and your story.
Yeah. And really, this podcast is in light of overdose awareness. So we will be talking about overdose, just to give you guys a kind of viewer discretion advice.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be talking about, JP, he's a survivor, but he's also had loss as well. But I think that you have really taken all of that and applied it into the work that you do, and it's been truly transformative. So I'm really excited to be able to have you on this platform to share a little bit about, how that all came about.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, I'm really happy to be here, and to bring awareness to, the day, right? Overdose Awareness Day, because, we've lost, and continue to still lose way too many people. And, yeah, I mean, I ripped and ran for a long time. And before I got introduced to opiates, right? And so I had the disease of addiction, right? And I was introduced to prescription pain pills after I got hurt, right? And at work, I fell off of a roof.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
So it was just like construction or just, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I used to work construction.
Yeah.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, before I did this. So, and the money was good. It was, I was a lot younger then, so it was fun, right? And, but I was reckless, and I showed up to work hungover from the night before, had been up all night partying, and I'm out there working on somebody's house on the roof, tearing off their gutters, and I slipped and fell and landed on the driveway. And so it was a pretty traumatic injury, and obviously I was in a lot of pain, and a person with my, I want to say genetic predisposition to substances. Once I was introduced to those, it was, there was no turning back. They superseded everything else that I used to do: cocaine, alcohol, right? Weed. It was, I had to have those.
Do you think, let me ask you this, because I can really resonate. Do you think that it's because of the actual physical, it's more than psychological, it's like there's a physical aspect of addiction that happens with that type of substance?
In the beginning, I felt, obviously I needed to have them, right? Because I was in pain. But then there came a point where, the doctor tried to taper me down in the type of medication. And the physical need to have it outweighed what it was doing for me, right? So even though he was prescribing me a lesser milligram of a pain medication, it wasn't giving me the effect that I was looking for. And so that kind of started.
You built a tolerance.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it
hands
was just,
down.
yeah.
Yeah, hands down. And so mentally, I thought, I was in pain because I needed this medication. But really, what it was is I was experiencing the withdrawal from coming off of it. And so I was really oblivious to that whole thing. Even though they kind of warned you and said you're going to have flu-like symptoms, nothing prepared me for what I was going to go through,
Yeah, they really underplayed that, I feel like.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's why we have opiate abatement dollars. I mean, come on. Like, it's wild because I think a lot of the time, people have this misconception about like addiction and like who are addicts and, the very stigmatizing language and just like views because we see like what media portrays, we look in the movies. But and obviously there's genetic disposition. I'm not saying that, that wasn't there before, but a lot of people, who specifically have been kind of where they got addicted to opiates has come through the medication itself. And I think a lot of the time we don't talk a lot about how it is just whether you are somebody who has a genetic disposition or not, like you are at risk for becoming addicted to this substance.
Yeah, it was wild. I mean, you saw the people in the waiting rooms at the doctor's offices of these pain management places, and you're looking at grandmothers, you're looking at people with their kids.
That's where I used to get all my substance. My supply was like older grandmas and grandpas that would get a Roxy prescription and stuff. So it's pretty wild.
Yeah, and so once that doctor tried to kind of taper me down, I was able to, that's what started my career in doctor shopping, right? So I was like, I would go around and find who was going to write me the most, and I had a legitimate reason, so to speak, to get written whatever I wanted, but it introduced me to a whole new game of players that were out there using, and that's kind of what led me to the overdose event. Was that obviously I'm getting pills, I take them by mouth, right, like you're supposed to, but then I started snorting them. I started doing taking them not as prescribed, right, and through my dealings with people and trading or bartering what you have for other substances. I was actually in search of Xanax, right? And so I found a connect who would trade me my oxys for their prescription of Xanax, right? And that was the first time I ever got introduced to a rig, right? And so first time I ever shot up, this girl turned me on to it, and I died. Like the very first time. She asked me straight up, she's like, how many pills do you take at a time? And I was like, oh, I usually take like 2 or 3, in the morning. And she's like, all right, well, give me 3. And she kind of like mashed them up and like did the whole thing. And I remember I was sitting on the bed, and she tied me off, and like I wasn't dope sick, I wasn't fiending or anything. I was just willing to try something different. And so I'm all kind of excited about this, and so she ties me off, and I remember her putting it in, and she looked at me and she pushed the plunger, and I don't remember anything after that. And I came to, and it was like I'm on a gurney. There's 5 EMTs standing over me. They're wheeling me out of the ambulance and into the hospital, and it was really surreal.
Did they have access to Narcan? Did you like call right away? Like, how did that?
So what I found out later was that she had called 911 when I overdosed, and then she proceeded to take everything that I had on me, all my pills, all my money, my car keys, my car.
Fun,
right? And but at least she called 911 and
did she leave the scene
and left the scene.
And I think that happens a lot, right? Is people
horrible.
Get scared. The best thing she did was call 911, because there are several scenarios where the individual just leaves the scene, and then that person doesn't get the opportunity to come back. So I think that's a huge blessing. What was that like for you when you first kind of came to like, I just overdosed, I died? Like, how did you even know that happened?
Well, I mean, I had this whole experience from the time that I lost consciousness till I came to, that I started to recall, and it felt like an eternity had passed in that time. There was I had that whole white light experience. I it's really awesome to try to describe. There was no fear, there was no joy, there was really just like this sense of calmness that I had while I was going through that. Um, I had I had this like vision of walking with like God, something that was like so big and so powerful. Like I couldn't even look in the direction of this like presence that I felt,
Wow.
right? But I had this overwhelming sense of peace, and calmness. Um, and then then I remember looking off, and there was like, and this sounds crazy, but it was like the universe was out there,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a corridor, with columns, and it was just really bright, and then I was told that it wasn't my time,
Mm.
and it was almost like somebody like rewound or fast forwarded like a movie really fast, and that's when I came to
Wow.
on the gurney, and so I had a sense that I had died,
Mm-hmm.
but I wasn't really sure, um, and and it was one of the EMTs that looked over my head at me, and he's like, "Oh, John, glad to see you could join us," and he's like, "You've been dead for like the last 11 minutes." And panic starts to set in, and I'm looking around, and I've got a mask on my face, and you know I'm like trying to like move and get up, and they're trying to hold me down, and they get me in the ER, and they put me in a room with a white sheet, and they just kind of all walked out of the room, and they closed that sheet. And then a nurse came in, and she asked me, what did I take, all this stuff. And I was like too scared to answer, really. And I was like, I'm not sure. And she's like, well, you overdosed on something. um, just wait right here, the doctor's going to be here. And so I'm freaking out.
Yeah.
I don't have, my pills are gone, obviously. I'm checking my pockets, my stuff is gone. um, I'm feeling pretty nauseous, right? I'm not very comfortable. I'm sweating, and I'm starting to go through withdrawal.
Mm-hmm.
So, the doctor comes in, and he tells me that he's going to hook me up with some fluids, right? And he asked me if, how long had I been using drugs, and, and I told him, I was like, I'm prescribed my drug, I'm prescribed painkillers. I have a back injury, blah, blah, blah. And he kind of rolled his eyes, and the nurse was coming in with the stuff to do my IV. And he just kind of like rolled his eyes, and said something to the nurse and walked out, And at that point, I sat up, and I asked the nurse, I was like, what are you guys even going to do for me? And she's like, well, the doctor ordered some fluids. We just want you to stay here. And I was like, I got to go. I got to find my car. I was like, I don't know where my car is.
My wallet's gone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everything's
Yeah.
gone,
Yeah.
and I was like, I don't have I was like, I don't even have my cell phone,
Yeah. And you're going through withdrawal.
Yeah.
Like I think that people don't understand how that feeling that you feel when you're going through withdrawal really adds to the angst of like, I got to get out of here because
Yeah.
I got to get well.
Yeah, nobody was doing anything to kind of like settle my nerves or reassure me, or, it was just like procedural stuff,
Yeah.
and so I was like, do I have to be here? And she's like, well, not really. You don't, but the doctor doesn't want you to leave. And I was like, well, good, then I'm gone, and
Didn't
and
help that the doctor rolled his eyes. It wasn't like there was
Yeah.
compassionate care. Like, we want you here.
No,
That's what I was
no.
going to ask you too, is like because I think that's just as important, right? Is like how people are treated when they're coming into care. And because we know a lot of overdoses come in through the ER, which where we're at today and probably where we were at that time, which
Yeah.
was how many years ago?
Oh, you're talking 15 years ago?
Yeah,
So-
we've moved the needle at
Yeah.
least.
Oh,
Yeah,
huge.
in a big
Yeah.
way. Yeah. So
And yeah, because it was just there. and so like, yeah, I just wanted to get up and leave. You know, there was nothing that was being told to me or anything about what had happened. Nobody could answer my questions about, you know, I was like concerned about my stuff. And I felt like they were gonna have the cops come in, you know, and here I just shot up. I'm trading my pills, you know, I'm like in fear of, you know, getting in
All these
trouble.
things,
Right.
yeah.
So, you know, so I was out the door. And then I had to get my bearings about me and try to kind of figure out where I was, because I wasn't familiar with the area. But I was at Northwest Medical in Margate. I had OD'd in Coconut Creek. And so back then you could at least remember phone numbers. And so I was able to use the phone, and because
Yeah.
you don't, nowadays you just save
No.
everything. You can't
Yeah.
remember your own grandmother's phone number. But
Yeah.
but I called my buddy, and he came and picked me up. And while I was sitting there waiting for him to pick me up, Coconut Creek police walked in, right?
Mm.
And they're like, John. And right away I thought I was going to jail. And they're like, John, we found your car, and we found your wallet and everything, and we just want you to come with us so that way we can so you can retrieve your things. And I was like, my buddy's coming to pick me up, 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 up. So we followed the cruiser over there, and sure enough, homegirl sitting in the back of the cop car. She had got caught with all my scripts. She was trying to drive my
Wow.
car, and it's a stick shift. She didn't know how to drive a stick shift. So when the EMTs and the police responded to the overdose call, right, they see her at the stop sign down the street trying to drive
Get
away.
Oh
Stalling
my
your vehicle.
gosh.
Yes.
Wow.
Trying to leave
Yeah.
the scene.
Yeah, so she got roped up, you know, but I was able to get all my stuff back. And
Did they give you your prescriptions back?
hell yeah, they gave me, it had my name on it. Right? So yeah, I got my wallet back and everything, and then I was like, son of a, you know, and I freaking got in my car.
Did she get arrested?
She did, yeah. She got arrested for stealing my prescriptions, in possession of a controlled substance. Yeah, she went to jail. But
And you got into recovery.
what?
I know. Go ahead.
About to say, it doesn't sound like the
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
No, I walked away from that with an S on my chest, thinking that not even death could get me, right? You know, I felt empowered, and just, you know, was not even concerned for my own life,
Yeah.
you know, and everything that I had experienced. I bragged to everybody about what had happened and like the experience that I had with that whole white light thing and walking with God and freaking, you know, and that there's something more for me, you know, and I'm gonna rule the world and be this kingpin dope dealer, you know, or whatever, right? Like, isn't it crazy?
Yeah, where our mind goes
It
when we're
is.
not well.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and no, and I mean, I never hit a bottom like that where I overdosed and died. It was always in the back of my mind that, you know, I never popped a pill or snorted a pill after that. I moved right to shooting up, just because of how fast the effect was.
Did you carry Narcan? Like, did you guys have that accessible to
No.
you? No.
No, I didn't even know what. Back then, I'd never heard of it. Didn't even know that existed. You know, so it
Were you
was-
more mindful with like your dosage? When
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I learned to just kind of tap a little bit.
Yeah.
And even more so once I graduated to heroin and on the streets, because obviously the pill mills dried up, you
Yeah.
know, and they got busted, and so, you know, I wasn't gonna stop because they got shut down. I just more extreme.
Yeah. So
Measures
what was
to
like
get
the
what I
turning
needed.
point for you, like with kind of recovery and where things kind of changed for you?
The turning point for me was that I used to complain about how I wish people would just leave me alone and let me do what I want to do. And I finally got my wish, and being that I had nobody, everybody had kind of left me alone, and I got to do what I wanted to do, and I was miserable. There wasn't enough dope. There wasn't enough of anything that was going to kind of help fill that hole
Mm-hmm.
of feeling empty and alone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that was the turning point for me. Is that, you know, I was I had started trying to go to treatment and to detox and to get off, and
Mm-hmm.
thought like once it's out of my system,
You're gonna be okay.
I'll be okay, and
Yeah.
I can go back to work and I can repair the relationships or whatever.
We
Um,
didn't realize it was something a lot deeper, right?
yeah,
Yeah. There was
y-
actual. Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot more to it,
Yeah.
right, than
Yeah.
just getting those things back.
Yeah.
And you know, but and all those attempts and everything, you know, I finally was left with myself and my drug of choice, and I found that, you know, after all those years of just wishing people would leave me alone, I finally got it, and I didn't want I I didn't want to be in that space.
Mm-hmm.
It was empty, and I mean, I had lost my kids, wife, mother, you
Mm-hmm.
know, anybody that I cared about, or that cared about me, you know, weren't in my life, and that was kind of the turning point where, you know, I had tried to blame God,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and in my last 24 hours, I remember screaming at the sky, and asking God, why did He do this to me? And in that moment, I was kind of flooded with the thoughts and my actions of everything that had led up to where I was at, and trying to curse God,
Mm-hmm.
and realized that, you know, it wasn't God that did this. It was me who made all these decisions,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and He's just kind of taking a backseat, watching me kind of stumble along the way, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a lot of times outside of that overdose reversal that God had saved me and intervened.
Yeah.
Feel, you know, where, you know, I could have ended up dead, and whether it been robberies that were, you know, home invasions and things that had happened, you know. And so um, when I came to that realization that, you know, I had nobody else left to blame and I couldn't blame God,
Mm-hmm.
I really kind of looked at me, and that was my last walk back to detox,
Yeah.
you know. And it was a long walk, you know, and that night, and but I had a lot of time to kind of reflect about, you know, all the things that I had done and how many times I could have stopped, and or chosen a different path,
Yeah.
and
How many times did you go to detox, do the treatment thing?
uh, I did it 13 times in 2 years.
Yeah.
So if you do the math, basically every other month,
Yeah. Yeah.
I was in and out, trying to figure this thing out.
I think it's
Um,
important to talk about that because a lot of the time people, you know, on the other end, the receiving end, maybe in that, you know, treatment center detox,
Mhm.
they kind of are like, they lose hope, right?
Mhm.
Of like, this is kind of like this revolving door. This guy is kind of
Mm.
stuck in the insanity, right?
Mhm.
Doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
But who's to say when it's gonna take, you know, or like when, you know, there might be like just one slight change, or you have that moment of like, okay, no, I'm gonna stick and stay, or
Mm.
whatever the case may be, whatever it is that the door opens and you're like, I'm gonna keep walking through this, you know. And I think it's important for us to always know that because it's a hard addiction is really hard, you know. And I think that a lot of the time people just think like it's this moral failing, like people, they can stop whenever they want, but you know, it changes your brain and you are literally like operating on survival mode. And so like if you can imagine that like your brain is in this survival mode and every single day it's like I got to get right. And people don't realize that if they don't understand it because they've never been in that type in those shoes.
Yeah, that the one thing that I can say about where I went for treatment. By the 13th time, they knew me by name. I think by like the 7th or 10th, you know, they knew me by name as soon as I walked in. And I'm talking about everybody from like the security guard to you know, the nursing staff, obviously the doctor,
But like in a good way.
in a good way.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
like they were glad to see me, right?
Awesome.
You know, and we hope this is the last time.
Yeah.
And you know, there was a lot of
You were met with compassionate care.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I was turned on to this place through a police officer who was transporting me to Main Jail. You know, and they were like, you know, if you think you have a problem, because I was being arrested for drug possession.
Yeah.
right? And the officer asked me if I thought I had a problem, right? And I'm looking out the window like, I'm on my way to main jail. What do you care? Like, in my head, and I was just like, I don't know. Like, well, I could care less if you think you have a problem or not, but if you want help, uh, there's this place called Bark, and we were literally at the intersection of Andrews and Broward, on the way to main jail, and they pointed over out the window and told me where to go, and that's what started my journey with trying to go to treatment and get off the stuff. Right? I was like, I called my mom as soon as I got to jail. I'm like, Mom, please, if you bail me out, I'll go to this place. Officer said they'll give me, they'll help me, blah blah blah. Because I didn't know, I didn't know what resources were available.
That's pretty
I
cool
didn't-
though that
Yeah.
you're the officer and your
Uh-huh.
last arrest was
Uh-huh.
like, hey,
Yeah.
like if you need help.
Mhm.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I never got arrested after that. I always found myself going back to Bark instead of cruising the neighborhood looking for the dope man. It was like,
That's a positive
yeah.
change. That's a positive step.
It
you know?
was,
Yeah.
yeah.
What do
Like
you think it was for that last time to really make that change? Like, what was the?
just the emptiness, the isolation, feeling alone, um, no longer accepting my part, not being able, because I always wanted to point the finger, my dad who, my stepfather who, was physically and verbally abusive, my real father for leaving. I mean, like, like all these
all the stuff,
things
yeah.
that
Which are
we-
important because it's part of the healing process, but it's
Right.
like the recovery process is when we take ownership of like,
Right.
okay, but I still have control over
yeah.
my life.
Yeah, I literally stopped blaming anybody and everybody else, and really kind of got to look at me, and
Yeah.
stop playing the victim, and that was a turning point for me. That 13th time, the counselor,
Lucky number 13.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's usually not.
And I didn't
usually
even-
not the lucky number.
I didn't even know that I had been there that many times. It was the counselor that was sitting across the table from me who literally took his lanyard off and said, John, you want to go run group? And I was like, what? What do you mean? He's like, well, you've been here so many times. I figure you should know, the curriculum by now. You go run group. You've been here 13 times. And that's when it kind of, I was like, 13 times? He's like, yeah, in the last 2 years. He's like, are you done? Are you going to do anything outside of here for your recovery? And I was like, I don't know. What do I do? And he's like, I would suggest the next meeting that comes in, whoever is bringing that meeting in, get their phone number and introduce yourself to them. And for the first time, I took the suggestion, because I'd never done that. I could sit there and read to you how it works like without looking at the paper, and would always want to be the speaker, to do that reading, right? Mr. Ego in treatment, and impress all the girls with reading how it works.
That's
without,
so funny.
without looking at it, but I would never go up and talk to the speaker. I would always judge those people.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
not clean.
I kind of did too,
know?
honestly.
Yeah.
And the first time I read like the steps and stuff, I was like, that's it? You just read it and you're done? You're good? Like, okay,
Right.
I didn't understand this
no
was like
clue.
this. It's like,
Yeah, I was like, and so but doing that action and asking another person for some guidance,
Yeah.
really kind of started this whole series of events for me, which was different than I had normally done. When I got discharged, I wasn't allowed to go to residential treatment. I had been there too many times, so they told me that wasn't an option for me. And so now I'm left in the lobby with this phone number, and so I called it from the payphone, and they didn't answer. Right? And I'm like, see, they're all frauds, right? This guy comes in here,
They're all coming to get me.
yeah,
They're all against me.
yeah, and the only thing that I could do is just sit there and kind of, I prayed sincerely for the first time. I don't know how long. And ask God to give me some kind of direction, right? And I'm looking up from my hands as I got done praying, and looking to the sky for like an arrow, like the clouds to form,
Mhm.
and that's how lost I was. And you know, God shows up in some crazy ways, man.
Yeah.
There was a man who was bringing in a meeting not long after I got done asking God to give me some direction, and this guy took a genuine interest in me. He was walking up, and I'm sitting on a bench, and he goes, "Hey, man, you okay?" And that's all it took for me, and because nobody else had really kind of, mind you, I was disheveled and homeless and living on the streets for quite a while. And I'm used to people just looking through me, right?
Yeah, of
Mhm.
course.
You know, but this person looked at me in the eyes, and you know that awkwardness when you accidentally make eye contact with
Yes.
somebody.
Oh.
Okay. Well, I felt that, right? As soon as this guy started walking up, and I immediately looked down to the ground, and when he said that, and I looked back up, you know, the first time somebody actually was taking a genuine interest in my well-being, and it just brought me to tears. I started bawling, and I told him, "No, I'm not okay. I just got out of detox." And he was
Mm.
like, "Well, you're here in an hour. As soon as I'm done with this meeting, you know." And that person came out of the meeting, and obviously I waited, um, because I was scared. I was full of fear, and this guy put me in his truck, and he started telling me about how much time he had and what he did, and how he got to where he was at, and all the things that he had to do. He got halfway, and you know, I had no clue about how to live in recovery outside of the walls of treatment, jail,
Right. And
or
really
anything.
detox because
Right.
you you didn't even go into a residential, you like got out of a
Yeah.
detox, which is a
Yeah.
shorter stay.
Right.
And then you're kind of put out into the world, right? And it's hard in 1 week to build all the tools necessary to like, sustain your wellness
Yeah.
and recovery.
Yeah,
So
I had none. I had no tools, and but this guy was sharing with me about where he was at and what he had to do, and he kind of laid out some things that he could help me with. He uh, he told me he could take me to a place where I'd be safe, that I could stay clean, and you know, they'd give me a little bit of time to get my feet underneath
Mhm.
me and get out there and go look for work. And he's like, "You're gonna have to go to some meetings," you know, and I didn't know what that was. I knew about meetings from like my mom went to Al-Anon, you know, and I slept under the table as a kid and stuff like that. But like I didn't really grasp
Mhm.
what that whole thing was, you know, and I, you know, it's interesting how once our situation starts to improve, how our mindset changes, you know, because that desperation that I had before this person kind of rescued me and was helping me, I immediately reverted back to my old behavior, you know, and I'm trying to sell this guy my food stamp card for $20. You know, I'm you know,
Mhm.
trying to hustle this guy and looking around in his vehicle to see if I see any change, you know,
Mhm.
because you know, I'm operating on fear. I don't know where I'm going,
Mhm.
you know, and I only know what's going to work for me,
Right. And these are the
right?
tools you've been using
Yeah,
to survive.
yeah,
So you're automatically,
mhm,
like programmed to use these tools to
yeah,
survive,
right,
and you're now
yeah.
trying to survive. So
And he saw me coming. I mean, he was one of us, right? You know, he knew where I
don't you
was
love
going
that
with it.
though?
Oh, it was amazing
Yeah.
because he shot me down. You know, he's like, "Well, what do you need money for?" And I was like, "Well, I don't have any cigarettes." He's like, "Oh, I'll stop at the store and buy you cigarettes." You know, and he's like, and then my excuse was the second time was that, well, I'm going to this halfway house. I don't have any food. He's like, "Oh, well, we'll stop at Taco Bell. I'll buy you a bunch of burritos." You know, and
Your favorite.
yeah, right. Okay.
So
So
I am curious
yeah.
here then, you kind of found this person, you kind of
Mhm.
started to walk this
Mhm.
journey. When would you say that you were kind of like on a roll when you found out like, okay, I think this is working.
When I
I'm
got
maintaining this for
yeah,
a while.
when I got my 30 days,
Okay.
I got so my clean sobriety date is July 27th of 2013.
My birthday.
Yeah,
We
your
share we
birthday.
we
Yes.
share a day.
Yes.
That's cool.
And speaking of
Uh-huh.
birthday, really quick, so sorry, it is actually your birthday today too.
Yes,
sorry,
it
that
is.
just
Oh my
jump
God, I
into
forgot to
that.
say that in the morning.
Yeah, you
Happy
forgot.
birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday.
God.
birthday, John.
It is, it
What a
is.
special way to celebrate.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
You're
yeah.
celebrating life
With all of
yeah.
us.
Oh,
yeah.
I know. With you
No.
all, you know, talking about recovery, talking about my experience, you
Yeah.
know, it's I couldn't have ask for a better gift.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I hit that 30 days, because my birthday or my clean date was July 27th, my birthday was August 27th, right? So I wanted to get to my birthday to get that 30-day chip, right? I was in, and then I got it, and I thought, okay, that's all right, I got that, right? And I remember calling my mom, who was living in Georgia, and I was like, Mom, I got 30 days clean, and she's like, okay. And I was like, can you help pay my phone bill today? It's my birthday. And she's like, oh, that's all you ever call for is money. Click, and hung up on me. And I mean, rightfully so, because that's all I did,
Yeah.
And I had done this for years, right? Is just, basically hold her hostage and extort money from her, so, and then I was a little resentful towards it, but at the same time, I was super stoked, because now that feeling was off of me. I wasn't sick anymore. I was starting to feel physically better, and really connected to m- me, and knowing me, and without being high.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, that's why I love what we do with peer support, is because that saved my life.
Yeah.
It was almost unsolicited peer support. This guy's just doing it, um, as an act of service, which I learned later as a part of the recovery process and 12 steps and stuff, but connect talking to somebody else who had been there, him sharing what he had to do, giving me kind of like a mental roadmap of what I need to follow, because I wanted to be him, bringing it, helping.
Yeah.
That became your hope. Yeah.
It
Which
did.
is cool
It was
because
huge.
full circle,
Right.
the counselor said you should run groups at bars.
Right.
And let's talk about what that looks like full circle, right?
Yeah,
And how
yeah,
your recovery, your lived experience brought you into the field of peer work.
I know. Yeah, I'm so grateful. Because unbeknownst to me and what was going to be laid out, you know, uh, God really knew what He was saying when He told me that
It wasn't
my
time yet.
yet.
I was
you
thinking the
know?
same thing. Like,
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah, I interpreted that as I get to run hard and party hard and blah 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 blah. But no, there was a much bigger plan, and that's where I'm in my present moment today, living that, and fulfilling, the promise that I get to kind of help somebody else, and I may never know what that help looks like and how it's impacted, but
Yeah.
I get to show up, for people today. And sometimes I feel like I'm dreaming, really at the life that I get to live today and the impact that we get to make.
Can you tell our listeners kind of like what that impact is? Because I think it's so special of like what you and your team does, honestly, JP, and like how that program started and where it's at today and who you collaborate with, because that's all really.
Well, if we talk about where it started, I was 7 years into recovery, and I had been working here since 2016. So, and at 7 years in recovery, I got the phone call that my wife was never coming. She had gone out with a friend. They had she had a reoccurrence. Unfortunately, the fentanyl that she did, that she lost her life, and in that, there it was something that I would have never expected, given the work that I did, being that we were both pretty solid in our recovery, working programs and everything, with all the dangers and everything that we had talked about, with people overdosing and dying. Um, I guess that whole attitude about it's not going to happen to me kind of thing must have been going through her head, whatever. But you know, losing her and having to take a step back from this work um, to kind of go through my own healing process and stuff. And then, kind of stabilizing my family and grieving and everything. There was a lot of anger and things that I was going through. And when I did come back to work, I shot up. I remember walking through the center and opening up the closet, and I was gonna get some Narcan to put in my car, so that I had it on me, and I remember seeing like the walls and walls and walls of Narcan in this closet, and I was just like looking at it. I went over to the book to go sign it out, and I had seen that nobody had signed out any Narcan in like almost a month, right? And I went back to my computer and I was just so upset and typed this passive aggressive email to all staff, and was like, as an organization, we have a grant that allows us to distribute this to the community, and not a single person has sent any or signed out any Narcan, um, which means that nobody out of all the people that we're serving has received a box of Narcan. And Susan immediately called me after I sent the, because I was kind of, it was passive aggressive. I mean, I was taking shots, and she asked me, "What do you like? Can you come to my office?" And she asked me when I got in there. I thought she was going to send me home, and that I wasn't ready to come back to work. And she goes, "What do you want to do about it?" And I told her, I was like, we need to be out where the people are going to cop, and at least letting them know, that this stuff is going to kill you, and this is what's going to save your life, and put a box in everybody's hand.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of what birthed Take Back the Streets. And we did this whole awareness campaign, and we reached out to the Department of Health. We got zip codes of where overdoses were happening through EMS and their reporting system through Essence, and was able to kind of strategically host these events in areas where they were being the most impacted. And through that, we got a lot of attention through our managing entity, community partners, and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think we were doing it monthly,
Yeah.
and in the rain.
Yep. With our signs.
Yeah, holding up signs, stopping traffic, having people pulling over, and dope dealers riding up on their bikes, asking us why we're out there. You're messing up my spot, and no judgment to them, right? And kind of asking them why you got to be out here selling dope, man? What's the issue? And multiple felonies, can't get a job. He's got 7 kids.
Yeah, there's always a
they're
story.
trying to provide, right? And so even sharing resources with him and telling him about OIC and where he can go, to get help to find a job and get certifications and things like that. Places that'll hire felons. And so across the board, supporting people in the community. Through those outreach events, we got the attention of Broward Sheriff's Office, who reached out to us and asked us, with all that we're doing in the community, they're seeing a spike in overdoses in Pompano, and how could we help? So we partnered up with
That's incredible.
a few other providers, and so rather than wallowing in the pain of losing my wife and having a reoccurrence and feeling sorry for myself, I tried to turn that pain into a purpose, And today, from that initial meeting with the sheriff's office and starting that little pilot in Pompano, we've branched out, trained over, well over 500-600 law enforcement officers across multiple jurisdictions.
Fire rescue.
Fire rescue in Hollywood, they're our biggest utilizers, and we run 24/7, and I went from it just being me piloting this thing to now having a whole team, and we've helped out a lot of people. At least 70% of our calls that we go on, we're guaranteed that person's going to accept help, because it almost mirrors exactly what I got to experience in that moment of somebody who was in recovery talking to me and
Yeah.
kind of laying out a roadmap of what they had to
Support.
do.
And even thinking back of like your hospital experience, right? And if somebody up here would have met you at the
Oh,
bed of the hospital, right?
yeah.
Or even like when that law enforcement said, "Hey, if you want help," and
Right.
how you actually took that help, right? Like that initiated something.
Yeah.
So it's so crazy in that window of opportunity because a lot of the time people are desperate, and they're desperate and for
Oh, yeah.
help, whatever that may be. We can't put we know what this is, the kind of help that somebody wants, but compassionate care and just like the options of something different.
Yeah, yeah, it goes a long way. When we see it day in and day out. When people are at their lowest, they're receptive to hearing something, and it's there's been a whole shift, from when I experienced that overdose event to today, because now peers are stationed in the ER.
Yep.
Which is incredible.
Yeah.
It's such a tool. Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, we piloted a
Yeah.
program at Holy Cross
Holy
because that's
Cross
how we started responding
Yep.
to the ER. And
Mhm.
we saw that people were calling law enforcement to get help because they had heard that when law enforcement responds and takes them to the ER, they were getting met with a peer specialist. And so you saw the need in the community, and that's why I love the name of your department, community response, because really that's what it is, right? It's responding to the community need, and overdose is still a huge need all over the nation, the world. There's overdoses happening, people are dying, one is too many. And so I think that the program that you were able to initiate and the team that helps to sustain it is phenomenal.
Yeah, and furthermore, I just want to add
Thank
to that. One of the things that I wanted to make sure you knew, is how you say you have the department and your department is very much working on community, right? But the way you're inspiring even people who are not in your department, like I've let me tell you, any chance that I can talk about Narcan to people, I brag about it. It's like, oh yeah, my job, we just pass out Narcan. Yeah, we do that. Spring break is like the best time of year,
Right. Yeah.
And it's like people, and it's funny because it all started when you trained me. You were the one who actually trained me on Narcan. And you taught me about what it was and the effect that it was having in the community, the positive effect. And it really inspired something in me to like teach people around me. Like I asked like I have a lot of experience working in churches, right? And it's like I'm always, hey, you need Narcan? Let me know. I can get you some for my job. Like I have somebody, a close friend of mine, they're youth pastors, and they asked me, hey, can you give me a box of Narcan just in case? We want to make sure, well, obviously our students, we haven't had any experience, but we want to be safe. And I'm like, that's because of what you have taught me, and like just to let you know, like how you're affecting, right, in a positive way, is that because of this work that you and your team are doing, more people are being reached, even people who don't normally know about drugs or don't normally know about overdose or would never even experience an overdose commonly because they're not associated in that world. Your push to the community is so valued because of your story and because of your dedication to it. So I just wanted to
Thank you.
like I'm
Yeah.
literally I'm writing all these notes on my little notebook, and I'm like, screw this, I don't have any questions to ask. It's just to thank you for what you do.
Yeah, I can share in that sentiment too. And I've had people in Georgia from where I used to, live and work, and people in Massachusetts asking me for Narcan and wanting to learn more about it. Christian and I have gone to high schools to train it with your model, obviously,
Nice.
but it's just
That's awesome.
Pretty incredible, yeah.
Yeah.
And the amount of perspectives changed, like law enforcement and fire rescue, and how now the ripple effect is the way they encounter people and the compassionate care, and how rather than taking somebody to jail, they say, oh man, this person really needs help. And then they call, which is so incredible, because I know that there's been so many individuals that have been truly impacted and been able to take that next step of getting whatever support or help that they needed, which has been like a life-changing thing, and it's like, that is system improvement. Like that is community response. Like this has to be a recovery ecosystem, and we all play a part in that, including law enforcement, including fire rescue, including the hospitals, the schools, all of us, right? Like, are we recovery ready? Are we ready to care for the people compassionately that really are hurting, that need help? And are you going to be the person that looks right through them or looks right over them, or the person that lends a hand and says, hey, I see you. Let's get some help.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, but it has shifted tremendously in how people who are struggling out there are perceived. One of the highlights of my job is when I get letters from participants to that first responder, and then I get to send that.
I get to see them and I love them too. It's like the best.
Add me on that chain. I want to see them.
It's awesome. It was even talked about in like a regional meeting at DCF about a person that it kind of came up who was a veteran that we were able to help and properly link to services and stuff, who was on the streets and now is living in their own place, and so just it's those things that you don't even know, right? You touch them, you're able to do what they need in that moment and kind of get them on the right path, and then how it kind of circles back around. And just from never really understanding, just by doing that Narcan training and how you take it out into the community and how you take it out into the community and all those trainings that we've done, we're fortunate to be able to be a community partner that has access to that medication, give it to people who can't afford it. Because literally, you walk into a Walgreens, you're talking $40.
Oh, I went to Publix recently to pick up my prescription medication, and then I look. I even, my wife was walking by, like, baby, look, and then there's Narcan right there, stacked on each other, $45, and I'm thinking, if I'm unhoused and I'm addicted, $40 is a lot for me, It's like, and it's wild what you say. Like, so many people, so many stores and companies, like they're selling it at these high prices, and I'm like thinking, but like, we're giving it out for free. Like, what are you talking about?
And I think it should always stay free. I think it should always be free and accessible. Just like, you have first aid kits that are hanging on every wall. You got to have fire extinguishers. You got to wear a seatbelt. You got, all of these things. That is something that should always be accessible. I hope it never goes away. If it does, I fear that we will lose a lot more lives. But it's super important. And I just want to shout you out because I was looking at, I always love data and I love, the work that we do here at South Florida Wellness Network. And I think it was like 57,000 something kits of Narcan that was handed out in 1 year, in the fiscal year. And 99 reported reversals. That means that called in reported reversals. So there could be way more that weren't reported in the fiscal year, in 1 year. That's pretty
wild.
It's pretty staggering to think about, but it's the team, the organization, and everybody having that same passion, to contribute to that. We do about 20,000 doses in 1 month for spring break. Right?
For the course of like 4 months, because we start like in February and end of like June. But
I have the sunburns to prove it.
Right. But I just think about like 99 people in 1 year. Those are 99 lives. That's 99 daughters or sons, brothers or sisters, parents,
teachers in the community.
99 people. Pretty amazing. One person is amazing.
I was just gonna say one is worth it.
I do have a question, John, and I know we're in a positive kind of conversation now, but I feel that it would be a detriment not to ask this question. I was watching. I follow this person on YouTube who does independent journalism, and he goes into different communities to do different type of journalism. And he made a video, 2 of them actually, in separate cities where they're talking about, the amount of people who are using in the streets. And I think he was in Baltimore, if I'm not mistaken, and he saw Narcan just hanging from trees. They were hooking it up on trees, areas where people were commonly using. And he made a comment that, in my eyes, now it kind of like triggers me a little bit to like have to like say, no, you're wrong. What are you talking about? But it's a question that I want to ask you because I feel you would have a very knowledgeable answer for this. A lot of people in the community truly believe that Narcan is a tool that allows more people to use. It encourages is the word I wanted to say. I wrote it down here. That a lot of people believe that Narcan encourages people to keep using or to use even more. What is your response to that kind of comment? And if you do it in a passive aggressive way, I would love it. And no, but all jokes aside,
Yeah.
I want to hear your response to this because I feel that comes to the crux of why a lot of people are against Narcan because they believe that it's going to encourage.
Listen, the only thing Narcan enables is for somebody to, again, and it's almost like the way people that are uneducated in the community about substance use disorder, it's like that movie Flatliners, right?
Mhm.
It's these college kids that they're all intentionally dying for this experience or
Mhm.
whatever. It's not like that. Nobody goes out with the intent to overdose, to die, right? Like it's just not. Um, it's just unthinkable. You know, the the things that people need in order to recover, um, are not. We're fortunate here, and in other areas, people don't have access to some of the things that we have here in order to find recovery. And so if they have Narcan that's available and they're hanging it from trees, so that way people don't die, at least that's something. And the the trauma that people experience and the reason for their use, and trying to kind of cope, you know, is something that takes a lot of there's a lot of things that have to be put in place for people to heal and find recovery, and so when they're using that to cope with whatever it is that they're going through, um, it's not that a moral failing,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
It is it is something beyond their control. I I know personally that I reached a point where I did not like what I was doing, but I could not stop because I was caught in this vicious cycle that I needed to keep myself well enough to be able to go about my day to days.
Yeah.
And when you're caught in that space where you can't stand what you're doing, but you have to do it, in order to feel some sense of normalcy, and until you've experienced it, you really can't understand. And so, for those that think that Narcan just enables people to use more, I would challenge them to kind of educate themselves on the
Yeah.
nature of this disease
Absolutely.
and that
100%.
it
And how
is
it even changes the brain. I mean,
the
doctor,
chemistry.
yeah, like, so the doctor from Dope Sick, which was an incredible, it's on Hulu. It's like a series and it really talks to like the pill mills and the Sackler family and all of the opiate epidemic. But he was addicted to opiates and he does a really amazing talk. I've had the opportunity of meeting him several times, which has been incredible. But he talks about how opiates also, like, it's a pain medication, obviously, so its role is to take pain away. Well, if you have like psychological, emotional pain from your trauma and you're dealing with all this internal pain, right, which a lot of time we don't talk about, but that's where maybe sometimes our self-medication and mental health kind of stems from, opiates actually takes that pain away too, because it doesn't decipher from that psychological pain and the physical pain, right? And so if you're hurting and you take something that now makes you feel better, right? And obviously there's also a dependence because it's a physical aspect where you actually physically get addicted to it. So there's all of these things that people don't really know because they're not educated on substance use disorder and even opiates itself, like learning about the drug and what it actually does to people and where it sits on the brains and what an overdose is. And like, so I agree with JP is a lot of the time it's a lack of education. We've heard it even doing street outreach before. You know, like you know, every year we get people that say things like that. And I love if it's an invitation to have a conversation, because the reality is, you know, I'll ask them, like, are you a parent? You know, how old is your child? Okay. Oh, you have a teenager? Okay. Well, what happens when your teenager goes out and for the first time they start to experiment and maybe they try something and they overdose and there's no Narcan around because that only enables use and they die. You know, it's like putting things into perspective.
Right.
It really, even when you talked about your recovery process, like you were going to use no matter what. Narcan is what enables you to continue to be alive, and you would not be here today to tell your story, to share the impact that you've done, like with your life and turning that pain into purpose, had it not been for something like Narcan, which saved your life, you know? So I think a lot of the time it's just that education piece, and there's still a lot of stigma. Like I talked about, people have this perception of substance use disorder, you know, but the more we talk about it and the more we share our stories, the more we kind of, you know, campaign around changing language, I think the more we move the needle.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It is wild how it does rewire your brain. When you're coming off of it and you go through your post-acute withdrawals,
Which can last for like years.
Yeah.
People don't know that. That could last for years.
Yeah. It's like I had to learn how to sleep without being medicated, you know, which was difficult in itself, you know, and the nights that I would lay awake and everything that was, you know, it was just having to kind of allow my brain to do things on its own without, you know, being, you know, put to sleep, if you will, you know, from the amount of opiates that I was doing. So, but yeah, that was a great question, Christian. And it's still a challenge. You know, when we hear from people that think what we're doing is a waste of time, you know, but then, you know, I challenge them by looking at the lives that have been saved, you know, and I get to share my story, and so do other people.
And the lives that have been lost, because it's still like one is too many. And I think I was looking at, you had sent out the data because there's a spike in overdoses, you know, and so those are people's children, those are parents, those are, you know, like these are people, these are people.
And if you would have looked at the zip codes, and where those spikes occurred, they're in the places that are more of the higher end. You know, you're talking about Parkland, Coral Springs. You're talking about
Weston, I think was on there. Tamarack,
Pembroke Pines. Right? It's
so the issue doesn't discriminate, you know, based on your class or your poverty or your
which is where you get a lot of the resistance about how it enables use, and it, you know, there's all this stigma and judgment, you know, and well, you know, that's not going to happen to me. I got lots of money and stuff like that. You know? And unfortunately, you know, there was 19 people in a 3-day span that died, you know.
I saw that.
Which, you know, and so it's, again, more work for us to get out there and kind of raise the awareness and let people know where they can get access to Narcan. And
like here, call us. We'll give you a box.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll bring it to you and refills and all that. And you can call in and let us report it, or you don't have to. We just want you to have it. But as we're wrapping up, I do want to give like a 30-second snapshot of like, what's life like now?
Oh.
Okay. And
life now today is amazing. You know, I have, you know, I have my family. I've built on my family and got some new additions, you know, couple new kids, you know, just turned
2 under 2, right?
2 under 2, right? But yeah, and it's wild and it's crazy and we have fun, and you know, I get to live intentionally today, you know, and
awesome.
And how, you know, I walk in the community, you know, and I get to hold my head up rather than hiding in the shadows, you know, and I get to speak up for the people that you know, can't speak for themselves right now, you know, and make a difference, you know, in whatever way that I can. So it's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, it's a dream.
It's really awesome. Yeah. And you get to celebrate your birthday today, you know, another year.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah. I appreciate you, and I've gotten to know you for 8 years now and watch your journey, and it's just pretty incredible. I love working alongside. I always say I get to work alongside like superheroes. So thank you so much for sharing and bringing light to this very important topic, and just giving us some of your story and your lived experience.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So as always, thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment if you can. We love to read those. Please share the podcast wherever you can. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Don't forget about September 13th, Recovery Month, the event. It's going to be really fun. Please be there. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.